Welcome to the Chromatic Connection, a space where vibrant minds collide and the hue of human expertise blend into something extraordinary. I'm your host, Fatima Shirawi, and every week we dive into a kaleidoscope of ideas, stories, and wisdom shared by top industry experts. Diverse minds meet and ideas shine in full color. This week we have a very interesting guest who is a very good friend of mine, and at the same time she truly has changed and transformed my life. So I'd like to introduce Mona Mirza. Welcome, Mona.
Thank you, Fatma, for having me. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'm very excited to explore the whole world of hypnotherapy, but I feel like our relationship has truly transformed with my sessions of hypnotherapy, because as I went into different levels of exploring my personality, I feel it also connected me as a bond with you.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to first introduce us to the audience, tell them what do you do, how did you get into the world of hypnosis, what interests you about this field?
Thank you, Fatma. I mean, first of all, as you know, I'm the CEO and founder of Biolite Aesthetic Clinic, and people might find it quite interesting that I actually ventured into hypnosis and psychotherapy. And it seemed to be quite a natural progression because I was always one who liked to look at things from the inside out in a holistic way, including aesthetics. You need to know what's going on in the inside. So that includes the psychology, the human psychology of what is making them feel the way they feel about themselves, their skin, particularly their appearance, as how we appear to the world and to ourselves really impacts our self-confidence. So it really was driven purely by how can I help my clients who are coming in for aesthetics to feel better at a deeper level. So it seemed like a natural progression for me to go from aesthetics into psychotherapy and hypnosis. So back in 2014, I enrolled into a British school for clinical hypnosis and psychotherapy. It was quite a handful because it was a course that I had to do with a lot of case studies and a whole year of it. Got me the certification, and that really was a fantastic opportunity for me to explore the human mind and the incredible benefits of hypnosis.
Incredible. So when you did these case studies, is there one case that stood out to you?
Oh gosh. So, you know, when you enter into, when you begin into the field of hypnosis, you really don't know what you're going to encounter. And you are looking at people's behavioral patterns or emotional traumas or people's self-limiting beliefs. The most interesting, case I probably had was when somebody came in the first time and said that they couldn't stop stammering or stuttering. And I was like, okay, this is a behavioral pattern that has been learnt. And so they felt that they wouldn't possibly be able to overcome it because they really struggled with it, particularly as it was a gentleman and he had to do a lot of, presentations for his company, and his job was on the line if he wasn't confident enough, and he was panicking. And I was like panicking secretly inside, thinking, I hope I can help this guy. I really do want to. And it was incredible to see how in 3 sessions, his entire persona completely changed. By the 4th session, he was bringing other people in and saying, this is the woman who's changed my life. And I can now confidently present all my presentations and, look for a promotion at the same time. These are the simple sort of cases that, may not be particularly unusual, but they are in the sense that they are life-changing. Because your whole life depends on the way you present yourself. It could be, your job. It could be a behavioral pattern that you are constantly, doing without really realizing it, because it's a subconscious act that's impacting your relationship on a day-to-day basis, be it with a loved one, your friends, your colleagues, your children. So, there's huge advantages to understanding how you can unlearn and rewire those kind of behaviors.
Yes, I absolutely agree, especially like, for example, my job is very much about being in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, years ago, I was a very shy person. So that was sort of hindering my career.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was something where I used to have panic attacks to be on camera and so forth, even giving presentations. But working on myself, also with the hypnotherapy, opening up these different layers of yourself and also coming to peace with certain parts of your life gives you that outward confidence that you get. Yeah.
Yes. I think a lot of it is irrational fears that we, sort of collect as we're growing up. It's a collection. We don't come into the world with any behavioral patterns. We don't come into the world with these fears, but we pick them up through, what we see or what we hear, or through societal or cultural nuances. They're through our experiences. And particularly in our formative years, up till the age of maybe even 14, I think we sort of set the tone of how we're going to be behaving as adults. And we're really not aware of, what we're picking up, because we're sponges at that time. Only to realize later on in our adult life how certain fears are actually hindering us in our day-to-day living, in our day-to-day relationships. We keep hearing about men, women going into patterns of toxic relationships, which is becoming so common. And it's like, I don't know why I keep attracting the same kind of person. And it's just, a subconscious act. So, when people ask me what exactly is hypnosis and how are you actually helping people, the basic question is that 95% of who we are and present ourselves is driven psychologically in us from our subconscious mind. Not conscious mind, but subconscious mind. So we act out consciously what our subconscious is actually telling us. So it's my job as a hypnotherapist to help you delve into the subconscious and rewire, reprogram all those limiting beliefs, all those fears, all those kind of boundaries that we may have put on ourselves that are creating all the problems, or all the kind of acts that we are playing out, whether these are patterns in relationships. But it's so important to first be aware that you are actually repeating a pattern.
Yes.
So you were aware that you needed to address an issue because it was hindering you. Sometimes people are not aware and they like to blame someone else for it. So, it's like, it's not me, it's him or her, or it's my mum and dad, but it's not me. It's her, my sister, it's my brother. I'm not the problem, they're the problem. And you'd be surprised when you actually, sit down and say, well, I need the help. The moment you make the change yourself, the moment you are able to understand that, how you cope with a particular situation, that you're not being triggered by a word or an act or the way someone looks at you, that you're actually able to diffuse a situation, and the responses of the other person also change. So by you actually making the change yourself, you actually change everything else around you and the way people act around you. And this happens, it's almost quite miraculous, because people think that, oh, I need to bring my sister in, or I need to bring my partner in. So let's start with you. Let's work on you. let's see what we can do about building you up. Let's work on your limiting beliefs. Let's work on your triggers. What's actually going on? Why are you being triggered by that word or what he's doing? Where is this stemming from? Let's go back and dig a little deeper. Let's diffuse it.
Yes.
So it's all about diffusing those kind of misconceptions or self-beliefs you put in, and then rewiring it in a positive way. So you're no longer feeling instantly triggered by, an act or a statement or anything. And all of a sudden, the person that you're dealing with in, whether it's a colleague or your sister or in your relationship, is responding differently.
Yes.
So it's pretty profound.
Right.
I mean, like in your case, when you came to me, you were very aware about how it was impacting your work. And we wanted to build you up. And it was a process. And I always say it's like peeling an onion. You take each layer off and you delve a little deeper and you delve a little deeper. And you're exploring and learning so much about yourself at the same time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And, it's happening so quickly that you enjoy and you see like, wow, I'm this incredible new person. But this was actually you.
Yeah.
This is actually you. I've not created you. I've just found you.
Yes.
And you found yourself. And I've just given you the tools to find that inner you. That's really what it is.
Yeah, very true. And also in my field of color psychology, it's very like 80% of our behavior is controlled subconsciously with color.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a true believer of you really have to address the subconscious mind, because this is what is actually controlling your entire life, how you behave, how you react towards people. And I would say my first stage of exploring, when I learned about color psychology, I learned about my personalities, and I started using these colors, it gave me sort of the first level of understanding of who I am and what strength I have. And that is what also made me alert to what are the things I needed to work on. So the next level was when I came to you, where I told you I have certain patterns. There's certain things that are repeating in my life which I do not understand. They're not things that I want, but they keep on, coming back as a pattern. And that is absolutely right, where you, like a lot of people in relationships, as you said, they tell you, oh, I keep on getting the same person, or the same thing happens to me. And I always tell them, I'm like, well, you have to have a look at yourself. Maybe there is something that you think about yourself, which is the energy you're giving out.
Yeah.
And it's attracting. So like somebody who, like as we said, maybe has a lot of insecurities about how they look, or they feel that they have to give up their personality to make the other person happy. So they will attract somebody who will demand that from them, but then that's not serving themselves.
Absolutely.
So so with the hypnosis, what's good is you first find the core problem.
Yeah.
And then you treat it. Also, the next stage, as we said, is when you fix yourself in the way you communicate your thoughts, the other person's reaction changes.
Absolutely.
So your relationship changes with the other person, and or how new people come into your life.
Yes.
How do you really react to it? So interestingly, when you talk about the triggers, so over the years, in our sessions, we've discussed, like sometimes when I feel very overwhelmed with a certain trigger, I was like, I need a session today, But what's interesting, I have noticed over the years, like, for example, just like a few days ago, I was in a situation where I would say there was at least 3 triggers. And I did feel very anxious in that situation. But my reaction was very different. Maybe I had this internal dialogue going on that the trigger is like, oh my God. But at the same time, outwardly, I was able to take in the moment, process my emotion, react in a sensible way. So sometimes the trigger may not go away, but the way you deal with the trigger is the healthy way with hypnosis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
coping strategies. And
Yes.
the good thing is, because you've been through this process, you've become even more mindful
Yes.
of why you're feeling this way. And that is a fantastic thing, because a lot of people don't go and ask themselves, why am I being triggered? What is causing me to feel this way? What did they actually say to me to make me feel so angry or so frustrated or feel so, like I've lost control?
Yes.
So it is all about how you cope, and understanding exactly which part of you is feeling this pain or anguish. So I always ask people to go and seek that part and almost have a conversation with that part. So that's actually part of what we call parts therapy, where we actually assign, you can even assign a name to that part and say, okay, part, let's have a conversation. Why are you feeling this way? What benefit does it serve you? Does it serve a positive benefit, yes or no? If it's not serving a positive benefit, I would like to release you. And I'd like to replace you with something else. And you find another replacement to fill that void, because your subconscious needs a replacement of some sort. So it's like a database, the subconscious. It's a beautiful thing. It's like literally a database of all our collective memories, experiences, emotions, everything over the years since we've been born. Some people will even go as far back and say that we even carry ancestral DNA, ancestral trauma in our DNA, and carry some of that as well. And when we're carrying some of that, then we need to go into regression, childhood regression, past life regression. There's all of these kind of different skill sets and therapies that we can use depending on what we're actually treating. So it's incredibly rewarding as a therapist to be able to actually help someone unravel their own personality and to see how we can actually optimize what they have as well. So it's very different to talk therapy. Some people like talk therapy, and that's, perfectly okay. Some people would like to go to a psychiatrist, and that's absolutely okay. I'm never one for saying don't do this and do this and do this. I always say, it's horses for courses. Some people like to go down the psychotherapy and hypnosis route. Some people just don't believe in it. There's some very common misconceptions about hypnosis that I think I'd like to actually touch upon, because it's sometimes they're quite hilarious. So some people think that it is mind control. So that's complete nonsense, because you're very, very aware, and you can vouch for this. While you're in a very restful and deeply relaxed state, you're very aware of all the instructions I'm giving you. Are you or are you not?
Yes.
And when I tell you to, I'm going to count down to 3 and you're going to open your eyes, even though you think you're in deep hypnosis and probably fast asleep, you're actually not, and you're up and your eyes are open. So you're listening to everything. And we've already had the discussion as to what we call pre-hypnosis talk, where you know already what is going to be taking place. So there's no real surprises. And if there was a surprise, you'd immediately wake up and open your eyes and say, well, hold on a minute, what's all that about? But, there's no real surprises, because it's all been discussed. No, it's not mind control.
Yeah, exactly. It's neuroscience. This is what it's all about. It's neuroscience. I know. Like I get the same thing when it comes to my color psychology, because because the color personalities so much about. So sometimes they tell me, like, "Are you psychic? How would you know this?" I'm like, "No, it's complete science."
It is. It's absolute science. It's really understanding. There's so much beauty in the mind. We really don't give it enough credit, and the more I try to understand and delve deeper, the more intriguing it is, because our mind can actually repair everything.
Yes.
if we really instilled that understanding, we really wouldn't be unhealthy, sick human beings. We wouldn't have to run to doctors all the time. With hypochondriacs as well, we see a lot of hypochondriacs. I've got, this has happened and this has happened, and I think I've got, I think it could be cancer. And like, what took you down that route? And then you've gone into Google and it's definitely cancer. And it's like, all right, let's just, have you had these episodes before? Oh yeah. What history is there? Well, my mother passed away with cancer. And it's like, okay, trauma straight there.
Exactly.
It's just there, and it's sitting there ready to just come straight up to the surface. And you don't realize it, but it's the little things like that that really impact the way we feel about our own health and in various aspects, our life in general. So one of the misconceptions was, that it's mind control. It's used a lot to treat PTSD, particularly, in the military. It's fantastic for PTSD. It's the quickest way to treat it without going into medication or any kind of drug therapy. What other misconceptions do people have about it? Mostly, I think, that it doesn't work. That's another one, that it's just a load of, it's popular, it's trendy, and it doesn't really work. Well, I say, if you come with the mindset that it's not going to work, then it's not going to work.
Yes.
So you have to be open to hypnosis. You have to trust the person that is treating you, which leads me on to, how to choose the best therapist for yourself. I always say, first of all, go with someone that is recommended to you, because you've known someone has already had, a positive experience. You want to go to someone who is a listener. Very important to listen. Not someone necessarily who's going to put, impose their thoughts on you. You need to sort of have that conversation, which is part of the initial, consultation. It's very important for me as a therapist, for my client to be comfortable with me, to trust me. If I feel they're unable to trust me, I will simply say no, because you're going to waste your time, waste my time, and waste money. There has to be an element of trust, and of course that builds up as you go along. But I think we're such instinctive creatures. We immediately know if you're going to vibe with this person, if you're going to feel comfortable or confident being in a safe space with this person. And that's what you want. You want to create that safe space, and you want to feel, I'm safe with Mona, and I know that whatever I'm going to say will stay with her, and that I think she understands what I'm going through. And again, understanding requires a level of empathy, a deep level of empathy, life experiences. I often feel that going to someone who is a little bit older, who has been through challenges in their own personal life, definitely helps.
Yeah.
Someone who's young, who's just beginning life, who may not have understood what, a host of failed relationships means, or what losing a loved one means. Grief is another thing. There's so many elements one can talk about. Honestly, it's a minefield. Relationships alone is one thing.
Yeah.
Grief is another. Trauma.
Number one, I agree with you. When it comes to a therapist, it's very much about your connection with the person. Listening is very important, which we don't find a lot of therapists who listen. But yes, listening is very important. And the third thing I also feel is that the patience of the therapist, not to also judge the patient. Because as you said, sometimes people are coming with traumatic stories.
Yes.
So not to judge the person, because
100%.
sometimes the trauma they go through Sometimes maybe they're not the victim, but sometimes they're the ones that have caused the pain.
Yeah.
You know, so definitely that judgment element has to be out
Absolutely.
as a therapist.
Absolutely. And that's where empathy comes in.
Yes.
Absolutely. Empathy is incredibly important. You cannot have judgment as a therapist.
Yes.
Absolutely not. Being qualified,
Yes,
being
it's
is very
very
important.
important.
You want to know the qualifications of the therapist. Who are they qualified? How have they qualified? Which bodies are they with? Inquire about if they've done similar cases. What are their results? You want to definitely also have a 30-minute complimentary conversation with a therapist. That should be offered, so that, again, you get that feeling of comfort, a level of comfort and a surety that you feel comfortable, and also that you're able to ask the questions that you may have inside and feel that they've been answered, and you feel sufficiently confident in the therapist. It's also very, very important that the therapist is black and white about the number of sessions that they're going to be. It's sometimes difficult to say exactly how many, because, like I said, it's like you're taking, layers of an onion. So I'd sort of give a general ballpark of anything between 4 to 8 sessions. In some cases it could be more, in some cases it could be less. But it's never 1 or 2 sessions, and it's definitely not 15 or 20 sessions. You can keep going back to your therapist over a period of time for a little bit of, a top-up, which is fine, or releasing, or if something has triggered you and you feel like, I want to tap into it. But when you start a session for a particular thing, usually with hypnosis and, clinical psychology, you're able to treat it fairly effortlessly in about 6 to 8 sessions. Yeah. So I'd say those are the main points. I think you will find that you start to look forward to your sessions. If you find that you're not looking forward to your sessions, and then you need to ask yourself why, and do address it with your therapist and say, somehow I don't really feel like coming back. And if you're not feeling that, then you have to say, why aren't you wanting to come back? Where is the discomfort in the body? Are you not feeling comfortable with a therapist? Are you not feeling comfortable talking to the therapist? Or did you not like the therapy itself, the method of the therapy? And it's important to actually discuss that.
As you said, it's not like a particular number of sessions, because each person is different. Each person also has their stage of what they want to face at that moment. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you could do 3-4 sessions, face what you have to, and then you get to a point where it's so overwhelming, you don't want to go ahead. Mm-hmm. You want to just take a month or 2, or even more sometimes, to just take in what you have just realized.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with that. And funny story, when we started, I remember the first thing I told you is that I can't cry. Mm-hmm. I can't feel anything. Mm-hmm. And it's because I had just lost my mother suddenly, and everything went numb in me. And my way was coping was to take care of other people and just be distracted with fun things in the world. So, going out with friends, traveling constantly, but I never dealt with any emotion. And then slowly, it started affecting my body. Mm-hmm. And I constantly had stomach pain. When I came to you, I was like, I can't eat anything. But at the same time, like, even they make fun of me that I can't cry. Like, mm-hmm. I'd go to a movie with my sister, and she'd be sobbing her eyes out in the movie. And I'm like, that was a sad movie. And she's like, what's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. But the first session when we did it, I remember I cried so much while I was in the hypnosis state, which I was aware. But when I came out of that first session, I could breathe again. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't realize how many for years I was suffocated with the pain. So that was like one like release that I had. And then it's been like now, I don't know, I don't even want to think how long it's been since we've been doing this. But like initially, as you said, it used to be once a week, sometimes even twice a week when I had like major problems. Then it was once a month, I would say. Then I stopped for years.
Yeah.
And then I came back, but like I came back because of like a particular issue that I could not move past, which I had noticed. I used to practice all what you taught me, and some of them work, some of them there was something stuck in my subconscious mind. And I remember one of my sessions also, it was a forgiveness session. I remember we had to do it 4 times because my subconscious mind refused to forgive the person.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to also, as a patient, be patient with yourself. You have to
Be kind.
be kind, give yourself that time what you need. So as you said, if you don't want to stop, you want to stop at that point in time, but discuss it with your therapist. You know, say that I want to stop it for so and so. And what I like about you is that when I tell you, for example, I want to stop at this point in time, I can't handle this emotion, you say fine. You know, but then you give me sort of questions for me to process and ask myself.
Yeah.
And then when I ask these questions after a couple of days, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Let me go ahead with it. But you give that space, which is very important.
Yeah.
And one thing that I have also noticed with hypnosis is that it gives you an inner strength. So there's a lot of, like for example, I had a lot of body image. And in the session, what I liked about it, you said, imagine the best version of Fatima. Okay. And what was strange, remember, I always get fascinated, and that image is actually my anchor whenever I feel like a bit, iffy about like how I look or how I portray myself. I remember I told you, like, I saw this, I have like long hair and I have this beautiful red dress on, and I always remember that Fatima. Like whenever I have a situation, or even sometimes people make me feel insecure. So like before, it's always been about my weight, which I don't understand, which I was never super fat at any point in time. But now their complaint is that I'm too skinny. But it does affect me. It used to affect me because I was like, why can't they accept what other things Fatima comes with? Why is it my waistline? You know what I mean? But then you made me comfortable with that Fatima. You made me comfortable that whatever size I was, or whatever even stage I was in. Before, also I feel a lot of people struggle, as you said, with this programming we have as children. Because we take in so much information, and also a lot of labeling goes in as children.
Absolutely.
So, like when you're like in the order of siblings, they always pick, oh, that's the pretty one, this one's the smart one, that's the, like this is the quiet one. So, and then you believe the labels they give you, but actually that's not the case. It's just you're a child, you're going through a phase,
100%.
and then you'll grow out of it. But you see, that inner child in you is like, that's the only thing they know. So when you go into hypnosis, you speak to that inner child. Like how you say, take the 8-year-old Fatima, put her in her lap, have that conversation, tell her we grew up, we succeeded, we're okay now. So this internal dialogue is really excellent in dealing with things.
Incredibly therapeutic. Very, very therapeutic. So these are like you've literally hit the nail on the head and described what we call Gestalt therapy, which is going into that inner child and having that dialogue with the inner child and asking the inner child exactly what it is that they're feeling and why they're feeling that way and what has made them feel this way and how we can help them. You as the adult are able to then protect them and guide them and give them that support, the love. reassure them and rewire the programming of, one of comfort, safety, love, reassurance that child actually needs. And this is such a common concern. Like, we grow up with all these, like you said, labels, cultural, societal pressures that are placed on us, even as children, For instance, as children, I've heard this many times from young men where they have been forced to go and learn the Quran, and they've gone to someone who is just beating them because they haven't learned it, or they haven't, depending on who the master is, but maybe they've had a smack, or maybe they've been said, you haven't learned this properly. And invariably what happens is, as they grow up, they seem to distance themselves from religion or from God, because they were, forced, and they didn't go willingly. And it could have been just that the teacher wasn't very nice, and that could be off-putting. There could be all sorts of what the teacher may call harmless, but it's considered abuse. It could be something they said verbally. It could be something they did physically, as a smack or a, knock on the head, and that, it affects the child. And something as simple as that has led someone completely away from praying or from God or spirituality or religion. And then when you take them back, because I've had people say, I really want to go for Jummah to pray with my father, but I just can't get myself to do it. And I'm like, really? What? You'd think, what's so hard about that? Just go. It's not. It's because deep down inside, it brings back a lot of childhood trauma. And then when you go down deeper, and then you try to get them to diffuse the emotion that is attached to that memory. So you're never removing the memory, but what you're doing is diffusing the emotion that's attached to it, and replacing it with a nicer memory of maybe your grandfather, who was always praying and, praying for you, and that love that your grandfather gave you, and you saw him praying. So it's rewiring and getting them to reestablish their connection spiritually with God, with a higher being, and having a stronger anchor from within. So this is an example. But yes, that in itself is something that happens quite commonly. So a bad teacher, or the way someone speaks to you as a child, dismissiveness, or in the case of where you have many siblings, you're lost amongst the numbers and not really given the kind of due care or care and love that you may require, as any child does, because you may be one of 14 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
And just grow up almost without that kind of love, care and attention from your mother, from your father. So there's so many dynamics at play here that create the personality that many people are today. And there's absolutely no harm in addressing it and saying, look, I think I need some help. And lots of people don't realize that actually they do need the help. And there's nothing wrong in asking for it and saying, I think I may have a problem. So there's this lovely saying by Carl Jung that until you don't turn your unconscious into conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Yes, it is. So it's so important for us to realize that, there is something that can help you with it. And you don't have to suffer.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I have done this over the years, and I've seen how my life has transformed, that the people around me who have not done it and are not aware of it, I feel are not serving their life to the fullest. And sometimes I get frustrated, but I have to remind myself that they have not reached that stage to face what they have to. I noticed this about people who have not healed, or have not come to that awareness that they need to address these problems. And sometimes I get frustrated because like if I see somebody like in deep depression and unhappy or are not like living their fullest potential, and I'm like, it's just because you're not releasing all these like thoughts and traumas that you are unnecessarily in your mind. Once you release this out, then you're able to really live an authentic life.
100%.
And this is like also what I noticed with myself. Like there were like two versions of me. Like initially, while I was going through this, my life was very much about being out and on the scene due to my work. Of course, like I was always on the scene and the media, so forth. And like anybody who asked me anything, I'm like, okay, yes, I'll show up here, I'll show up there. But I wasn't serving myself, and I was very unhappy at that point in time. Like people looked at my life outwardly like, oh, she's living her life. But I was miserable inside. And I felt very empty at that point in time. And interestingly now, my life it's very calm and slow, I would say, comparing to before. But what I liked about the hypnosis, it taught me, number one, to be comfortable being alone. And this was something I always struggled with. I was always afraid of being alone.
Right.
But as I released all these layers and I realized like I was worth something, I started enjoying my company. So, and of course, I would say COVID also taught you isolation to like really deal with yourself. So that was another thing where I became more comfortable on being on my own. But now I went through a stage that was good, but then I went through a stage where I was too isolated. And then I'm like, no, I have to now learn how to reintegrate again and be comfortable. Like, so with having this phase of isolation and discovering myself and being very happy, but then I was like, when I would go out, maximum be able to be around people for an hour.
Yeah.
And that's not me. I'm a very social person. I love sitting with people, listening to their stories, discovering, learning, so that's another thing we had to work on. When I came back to hypnosis, it was, we programmed something, but then we had to also deprogram something after a while. So it's also, I feel this like phase of you deprogram something, it serves you, and then you've had enough, then you go into another stage where there's something else that needs to be programmed.
I think it's a process of evolution, really. You're also evolving through experiences in life. COVID happened and it put everyone in the spotlight in their own isolation. It was a very rare time for everyone because you just didn't know how to actually sit still doing absolutely nothing, either alone or with people that you'd spent your life with, and then all of a sudden you're face to face, out of your normal routine, dealing with mostly nothing. And it really makes you question about yourself and your relationships. I mean, I know a lot of people who got divorced after COVID because they just realized, I don't really like this person anymore, because they didn't actually get to spend that much time with the person. It was like going through the motions, daily motions, until it was like, I've actually understood who you really are. It is unfortunate because I don't think you needed to just break off with someone as a result of that, but maybe work a little bit on yourself too. And ask yourself, why was I feeling this way? Isolation, forced isolation is what we had. And it does make us go into our head, make us also comfortable. This is what happens to people who are, call themselves, I don't like labels, but who are depressed. There's a certain comfort in being depressed. People wallow in depression. And that's what happens when you get comfortable in a situation until you realize that you're becoming socially isolated, or you're beginning to have social anxiety because you're not used to interacting with people quite in the same way. So again, that was a traumatic time. COVID was extremely traumatic. I think a lot of people do have PTSD as a result of COVID, the overload of information, and it was awful information. I mean, I remember switching off the news completely. I said, this is not happening in my house. I'm not putting it on, not listening to it. I'm not looking for it. I don't want to know. That's one way of dealing with it. But I just didn't want that negative sensory overload creating so much trauma in my head and causing confusion that I said, I just don't want to know. And sometimes that is the way to do it, because if that is your coping mechanism at the time and that's all you have, then do that. But people do wallow in a certain situation because that is their way of coping at that time. And that was your way of coping in isolation. But then, we got reintroduced into the world and we were expected to go back to as we were. And that didn't quite happen for a lot of people. I've had university students say they were out of university maybe 2 years out of a 3-year course because they were doing online studying. So they had pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, and they went on, and now they don't know how to socialize because they haven't had the social skills that you would normally have in a university, and they're socially awkward. So yes, of course, it means having another conversation, some therapy sessions to help you sort of integrate confidently back in, find your voice, find that inner confidence, and be able to say, no, I can do this, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed also during COVID, people took actions also out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So we noticed that there were a lot of marriages during COVID because people feared that, oh, the world is ending, I have no one, or people realize, oh, I haven't had kids yet, so they would rush to get married.
Yeah.
And then you notice the year later or 2 years later, all those marriages, they got divorced because the basis of why they got married was completely wrong. At the same time, also, there was good. So I had a friend who always, on and off, they had problems in their marriage. They would separate, come back, separate. And during COVID, actually, it was a blessing because they had to sit, they had to talk to each other and work through the problems because there was no escape.
Yeah.
And now their marriage is the best it could be.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So there's good and bad out of the isolation, for sure.
Yeah.
So my next question would be, when a person decides that they want to approach hypnosis, what are the types of sort of problems or disorders that hypnosis serves best? So if you can give us a list, as you said, depression is one, anxiety is one, PTSD, any other sort of things?
Honestly, the list is endless. I don't think there's anything that hypnosis can't treat, as far as I know, because it is, like I said, all learnt habits, learnt behavior, limiting beliefs, societal pressures and norms, cultural norms that we adopt. And so I'd say, honestly, what do I see mostly? I definitely see a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, lack of confidence, insecurities, relationship issues, particularly recovering from, heartbreak, depression, if they're not particularly on strong medication. Addictions is a big one. It could be an addiction to alcohol, drugs, addiction, any addictive behavior. addictive patterns like going into, toxic relationships. Phobias, fears and phobias. So fear of flying, fear of lizards, fear of water. I had a very interesting story about that where I had a journalist come to me and she said, I have to do a piece on a yacht and I have to write about this yacht and, I can't do it because I'm fearful of water. And I said, oh gosh. And she goes, how do I do that? I need to get over this fear of water so I can do this piece. Again, your job is on the line here. So we worked on her fear of water, and by the third or fourth session, she was confident enough to get on the yacht, do the piece, and she came back saying, you helped me. We managed to do it, and that's fantastic. So fears and phobias, a big one. Sexual abuse, big one as well. A lot of abuse, which impacts your relationships and how you approach relationships. You could also find yourself having, things like when we're talking about sexual abuse, it could lead on to things like sexual dysfunction. So whether it's men or women, that's something that people are very wary of talking about, and they feel like it's a medical problem. It's actually mostly a psychological issue. And so we work on that, and we've helped a lot of people on that front as well. Sexual addiction. It's, it could tear your relationships, your family. It's a form of self-abuse. Any form of addiction is a form of self-abuse. Yes, so it's really a vast amount of things one can help with because it all starts with you.
Yeah, and especially I feel with abuse, it's very difficult for the person to face it, because a lot of the time they block it out. Some of them erase it from their memory. So coming for any form of like therapy or hypnosis is good for people who consciously don't want to face the problem by talking about it. So hypnosis is good because in that state you are sort of, I feel, freed and in a safe place for you to express everything. So a lot of people, because I do the coaching too with the color therapy, and many people like I see certain like disorders or traumas, and this is where then I lead them to the correct therapist to continue their treatment. And many of them that say, I don't want to face my trauma, or I don't want to talk about it. And I know that it's not going to serve them because it will block the most wonderful things in their lives. I always tell them, I'm like, then go to hypnotherapy. Because this way, you don't have to consciously talk about anything. But at least you are dealing with it. At least you're making your mind process, feel. Think that there is light. There is life after this trauma. Because a lot of people that go through trauma, I feel finished. My life is ended. Or because of this trauma, I will never be happy again, or never find someone again, or, or they go within themselves and they feel I should protect myself so much, and then they block themselves from the world. So there's a lot of layers to this, but definitely I do feel hypnosis is a great thing for people who consciously don't want to talk about the trauma.
Absolutely. It is, again, a coping mechanism, not to talk about it. And like you said correctly, it impacts your life. It impacts your decisions, impacts the way your choices in your relationships, the choices on your jobs. So there's so many things it can impact. So it's important to release it. Like I said before, we don't erase the memory from the subconscious. We just erase the emotion attached to that memory. So it no longer, controls you. It no longer dictates your choices, and you're free of it. It's a form of liberation.
Yes.
So any form of addictions, even addicted to vaping, addicted to social media. It's these are the modern addictions that we're seeing. Addicted to your mobile phone. You put it away. You need a little bit of a digital detox. It's so necessary.
Yes.
They would do themselves such a huge favor if they could literally put the phone down and give themselves time out. Essential.
Yeah, very true. Like when we went on our health retreat, I remember, even though we didn't ask for the digital detox, but because we were so relaxed and so balanced and it was wonderful because you see it was in and out. We were doing different therapies, we were eating healthy, the environment we were, and both of us didn't even bother to have a look at social media or check our emails or anything, because you felt balanced. You were nourishing yourself with what your mind and your body needed. So I completely agree. So of course we could go on forever.
We definitely can.
But I would like us to close with, what are your last thoughts about or what is your advice to the people out there when it comes to seeking help with hypnotherapy, and where do you see the future of hypnotherapy?
I do feel there is a growing trend towards the understanding of how the brain functions, and more of a need for the psychotherapy and a deeper understanding into how hypnosis can actually benefit people without necessarily going down the drug route, without necessarily going through a kind of talk therapy that keeps repeating the trauma through talk therapy, which I feel is so unnecessary and can be quite dangerous as well. So I do believe this is going to only get better from here. I think there's definitely a need for more hypnotherapists and psychotherapists, and there's a growing number of people who are getting into the field, which I think is wonderful. So my final thoughts about hypnotherapy is it's a great tool for anyone who is struggling with self-doubt, limiting beliefs. It's a good way of learning to love yourself, learning to understand yourself. It's a window to yourself, like nothing ever that I know. As far as trends are concerned, or how I see the future, more and more people are looking for a drug-free route. So hypnosis is a perfect way of going down and exploring that route. So the options are there, people have choices, but a lot of people now are looking for a drug-free route to treating psychological concerns. And I think psychotherapy and hypnosis have a lot of amazing tools that can help people. It sits really well with a lot of other healing modalities. Now there's a lot of healing therapies around. It works really well with what I do at Biolite as well, with the biohacking therapies, be it, ozone therapy, far infrared sauna, bioresonance, which is energy-based and a fantastic therapy for treating things like allergies and things. And once again, we're working with energies there. So it works really nicely with energy-based therapies as well. So I see this becoming very, very popular. I'm seeing more and more people training in hypnosis in different skill sets. And once again, I would like to say that, hypnosis is not a cookie cutter approach. It's very, very different. And therapy to therapy, therapist to therapist, using different skill sets from, parts therapy, regression therapy, gestalt therapy, NLP, CBT, and sometimes even using Reiki and other modalities along with it. So it's wonderful to see how you can help people using these kind of different skill sets. So I'm very excited about the future. I love helping people, making the change. And it's very, very, very rewarding when people say, I feel like I've had a rebirth. And I've heard this so many times. I feel I'm born again. And it's like, literally, it's such an overhaul for one's personality. And as long as I can help people at that level, I will continue to do this along with everything else I do on a physical aspect with great skin, great hair, great body, great health. This is an element that I think is incredibly necessary and very, very beneficial.
Amazing. No, I absolutely believe in the integrated medicine that you practice at Biolite. Because it's all about the inside out and the different stages you go to. So as I always tell you, Biolite is my second home.
We have a special bed for you.
Yes, I even take meetings there now. So thank you very much, Mona, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, the wonderful stories you shared with us, and I wish you all the best.
You are most welcome. Yeah. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Fatima, for having me.
And that's a wrap on today's Chromatic Connection. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their brilliant palette of insights with us. If this conversation sparks something in you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who'd love to add more color to their perspective. Until next time, remember, life's too vivid to stay monochromatic.